especially in telling the African story and history of Mandela?
Yeah, I think I see the site as bringing together two forces, and therefore symbolic of those two antagonistic forces. On the one hand, you have a people who are pushing the colonial agenda, and already that engaged in fights with Ndebele on the 25th of October 1893. That was in Sugamini, commanded by Umanondwane Chabalala. Then they were defeated. Then what happened was they then the so-called pioneer column proceeded towards Bulawayo. That's when Imbizo, the crack regiment, says, the way ngathi likhuba umthimba Nkosi sivumele siye kubamba ngamadevana. That's when they were allowed to engage them, and they fought on the 1st of November 1893. Now, when the king heard that Imbizo had been defeated, the message was clear. The state had collapsed, the nation had collapsed. So he ordered uSivalo uMahlangu umntakamveleleni ukuthi hey chisa umuzi sengihamba. So the whites arrived on the 4th, and then they were under a certain Patrick Forbes, Major Patrick Forbes, deputized by Major Allen Wilson with Commandant Raff. Now, Commandant Raff was coming from the Tuli Regiment, and then Allen Wilson was coming from Fort Victoria, and Patrick Forbes, the overall commander, was coming from Salisbury. So they decided to embark on a pursuit ulandela uLobhengula with a view to capturing him. Sehamba uLobhengula with his ox wagons, with his horses, etc., etc. And the people, the queens, the children, all of them were following him. Right. So by the 4th, they had already left. And remember, the battle here would take place a month later, on the 4th of December 1893. You can imagine walking on foot that it would take time. So they took time, but it seemed King Lobhengula had some force, spiritual force, which was perhaps fighting on his behalf. Now, the river is not very far from here. If you, from here, you go to St. Paul's, you cross, you get to St. Paul's. And those people who were pursuing felt they were overburdened by what they were carrying. So they decided to go back. Sebechaphile Olupane, baqale bachapha ububi, asibuyeleni. And they go back to Chile, which is beyond Nyathi. Bayilahla ezinye izinto. And yet Lobhengula by that time was only a day away. If it were not for these events, one, that they went back to reduce their burdens, as it were. Two, if the river did not flood and therefore divide the white armies, and the water helping in that is Gwagwagwa, the Maxim gun, could not go with those who crossed and followed the king. Ulokuza wasala, Patrick Forbes wasala the other side. Kungasela kulesi Gwagwagwa khona ngayo. Lava, I think, wanting a glory of having captured the king. Bangena. So kusebusuku ufuna lokhu gcwala. Africans believe in spiritual intervention yabakhona. Udakamela bayivele inyanga ngabakoncube lapho. there's a chief Dagamilikai, wenza imithanithani yakhe so that rains would fall. Lopengula was saved by the rains. There's no doubt about that. He was saved by the Shangani River. If that had not happened, forget it. They were going to capture him. So they couldn't. So Sebe Konangale or Patrick Forbes, Allen Wilson with some macros, but it was getting dark. Lavana Basal. And then Lavana Sebe Kapi. There were lots of them. Lavana, Labo Mama, Sebe Kapi. The one person Ongeko, Umchane Kumai, because he had commanded the armies Ekatate, so uze figure at the right time. Atola makiwala nanga, lana ngali wonfu, lavana sebe hampi. Now this is where the strategic mind thinking Kamchane worked. Umchane ubuye labo campu store. What campu? Lamabuto. Salani ngapha. Laba bantu abasebevalelwe ngumfula ngale. Lalaba linabavaleleni ngapha. They can't go anywhere. They can't cross the river to reinforce the Allen Wilson party. They can't go back or escape. Wabachiya khonapha yena wachapha. Usechapha ikakhulu lamabutho awakhe. Wona lana kade silwa le egadade. Kule mbizo imbizo le. Lensuka mini eyachaywa hlaka 25 eThangani. Wathi enyakhona kabasale kuleli cele lomfuki. I hope you get the picture. So Patrick Forbes Nampa, there is the river. They are hemmed in. Lava sebe kono kampu baba valeli. Umfula uvaleli. Now ingubo lehlathi are deployed on the other side. So to sort of reinforce umfula sebencedisana Patrick Forbes lesigwagwa kwasakho you will not cross. Yena wachicha wahamba ngoba olobhengula sebefikile hayi izulu laselisini okubi lana usuku bonke. So bazefika ngapha sekumnyama, they couldn't start the war. That's why bafika bachapha umfula on the 3rd. But the actual fighting was delayed until the morning of the 4th. Amandebele, the armies were out there. Sebuyile Umchane is taking over from Makwekwe, Makwekwe Fia. Umchane ngwakhe. Sebehlangana bonke with the soldiers zamandebele ebezile sesikhona amakhiwa asefikile lawo. But they decide not to attack. Babe attack now. One vela kubonakala kusebusuku izulu liyana, and you don't know the size of the force yamandebele. So both sides bamelele ukuthi kungathi kuthi ndi amandebele ayevele esasela empondo zankolo. Ngakho ke abanye abangapha amakhiwa ayilokhu ebuyele siyangale besiyatshela lwana uPatrick Forbes ukuthi hey esikuchiye ngale, we don't know if there would be a survivor. And they were right. Omunye wazi the only way for those people to survive is to fly straight up like a bird. But it should be honored along with Locus Bubonayo or we have SARS. So it was the last man to fall was Major Allen Wilson. Allen Wilson ugwazwa ngomdikadiga esithi lijozi. Ulobamba amajozi ijozi lahle elinye ijozi ngokudla umsathanini. That's what they would say amandebele. Nxa sebelitema ijozi leli. Hayi wagwazwa ngumdilizelwa Fuyana. Ufuyana engumntaka Maphisa induna yesizindeni. Balobuduna lakathesi oMaphisa yikho le dolobho lelana kuthiwa iMaphisa. Isizinda sona lesiyana. Why kuphela kwabo bonke beyi 34 umuntu wazoqala ukubabona belapha ke wayengulwana uthiwa nguJames Dawson, owafika wathatha elinye iphane walimaka wathi to brave men. That stamp isihlahla sakhona sise-museum, to brave men. Wabangcwaba khonapha. But Cecil John Ross said, kabayefakwa e-Great Zimbabwe within the royal enclosure, the great enclosure. Waphinda watshintsha wathi kabathathwe baye buried ku-Allen Wilson Memorial laliyibona eMalinda Zimu within Matopos. This is where all the 34 are, including Oboro, kwakulabo Boro Street engceni nalani ngakazali. It was the last street. So he was one of the 34. So that obelisk elibonayo was in honor of those 34. Nothing about AmaNdebele. Kwakulamabutho amanengi, ingubo eyayilawulwa nguFusi uKhanye okuthiwa kule Ngutsheni babe khonapha. Ngizaqamba nje engibaziyo abalula, imbizo yayikhona, insukamini ikhona, ihlathi lokuphephela amakhosi lalikhona. Simele sitsho ngehlathi ukuthi abanye bakhona bathi inkosi sisukile lapha bahamba lenkosi. Remember ngithe ngo-1894 1893 bayilandela bayalinda ukuthi akukho abafo would then follow and capture the king. Well, there was no one to follow the king. They had all died. But baze bayaphenduka abanye bakhona ihlathi leli after 1896 imfazo 2 abanye bathola labafazi sebezibende because they assumed sebefile bebempini ukuthi bayaphila hayi balokhuza ke khona phana ke yili ihlathi laleyo uphephela amakhosi omcijo bakhona ogodlwayo bakhona abafazi sebezibende because they assumed sebefile bebempini ukuthi bayaphila hayi balokhuza ke khona phana ke yili ihlathi laleyo uphephela amakhosi omcijo bakhona ogodlwayo bakhona yibo ke abalwa le impi bawathanyela amakhiwa. However, what is significant, they won the battle, but they had already lost the war. That's what matters. The king had gone, the state had collapsed, the nation had collapsed. Wahamba, as you will see in the book. This, to me, there's great significance. We don't want to say too much about this. We gather here where we last saw the king. Wahamba, assisted by Usianganza, owayengu-chief pashu that time. I hope you, George Nyathi, will be here kusasa. Ngoba nguye he contributed a lot. Yibo abafihla uLobhengula ebhalwini lwakopashu. And bachaya i-decoy ukuthi amakhiwa anakani ukuthi olelela yinkosi. Kwafaka lamadayimana, kwafaka izihlalo zamabhiza. They believed, and hayi obuleweyo uMagwegwe uFiyana in place of the king. Usiyanganza ngangwe phuma lenkosi yamaNdebele behamba. Kwaba lobulawayo uNgomba umhlanga izihlobo zaboKhonti laboSticks. Nguyeke owaba ngumqamelo wenkosi. Inkosi kungayisiyo yona yahamba yachapha umfula yaquma ke eZambia yaya ebantwini bakibo abanguni esesithi angoni ngayo abebelencwadi. Yikho ngithi the significance of tomorrow's event lies, one, in that valor, that bravery of people who stood their ground and wiped out the whites, who didn't even honor the Ndebele who fought here and fell in battle. But tomorrow, therefore, marks that bravery. It's the beginning of a process of recognition. However, there is a more important journey that starts. And that journey starts on Friday. There is a team, I will not say much about it for now. They are going to Chipata, where the king sought a refuge, with a view to seeing how the spirit of the king can be brought back. You should know that.